Watch 'em make it, break it down.
Next one up, we have Astha. She is a marketing science partner, and she's gonna go into why testing is so important, and particularly why she's recommending a scientific approach to testing. So she'll give you all it takes to look at the numbers the right way and level up your game. I'm very much looking forward to hear it. Thank you, Astha. The stage is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Astha Kalbag, and I'm super excited to be with all of you here at AdWorld. Today, I'm going to talk about the experimentalist marketer. And what does that really mean? It means that all of us here are trying to hone our skills to really represent the future of marketing, which is someone who can, play around, have lots of fun, test and learn, experiment, and is constantly in that learning mindset so that as marketers, we can be the growth accelerators of businesses and help them gain better insights and be able to make better decisions. So, just a quick introduction. My name is Astha Kalbag, and I am the founder of marketing.com, a popular marketing publication that is read in over 120 countries. I'm also one of the top 50 people in digital in APAC, and as my day job goes, I am a marketing science partner at Facebook, marrying the science of marketing and science together. So if you want to reach me, do reach out to me at astha@marketing.com. Before we go into experimentation and all the goodness that comes from having a scientific mindset towards marketing, I want to talk about my brief journey that has led me to this point in my career. I have been someone who's always been very, very interested in the overlap between data, marketing, and technology. And that passion has actually been the key decision driver as my career has progressed throughout the years. I started at being at LinkedIn, where I was in the sales operations team. I grew from there to actually move to Skyscanner, where I was part of the growth marketing team. A few years later, I landed myself at Uber in the performance marketing org, helping drive digital investments and budgets. And from there, the story has continued to be pretty amazing when now I am a marketing science partner at Facebook and have lots of fun testing and learning all day long. And of course, along the way, I have my own company as well, marketing.com, that is, I guess, started as a publication and now has evolved to full service consulting. Today, I'm going to talk to you about making marketing investment decisions. And how do you actually make these in terms of driving the right business outcomes? And of course, we're not just talking about A/B testing or, testing creative A with blue backgrounds versus red backgrounds. We are talking about marketing decisions that are made at the CMO or, C-suite level. And when it comes to making such decisions, might it be a small startup or a huge marketing organization, the questions are generally similar, right? What is the ROI of a specific channel or different channels? Which new market should I enter? Should I enter the US or should I enter the UK? What demographic should I target? Should I go after young millennials or should I go after people who are in the age category of maybe 40 to 55 who have more spending capacity? And really, then it comes to making decisions even at the channel level or at the strategic level. How should I split my budget between different strategies? Should I stretch every dollar to go after retargeting, which is targeting the same people who visited my website or signed up to my email? Or should I spend every new dollar on acquiring a new customer? And of course, the most wonderful question when it comes to marketing: how should I best position my brand? How much should I invest in brand? And what are some of these outcomes that brand investments are getting for me in terms of my business metrics, which is around consideration, awareness, intent? And can I truly measure the impact of marketing? Now, we no longer live in a world where half of the budget, is wasted or unknown. We live in a world where every dollar counts, and you want to make decisions based on the right data, the right insights for us to guide a business to exponential growth. So, what is this experimentation cycle, and why is it so important for us to have the scientific methodology when thinking about the future of marketing? So, to take you through this very important loop, and of course, a lot of us have studied this, throughout high school or through different disciplines that we have, you know, been exposed to. But really, what is the experimentation cycle? You start with a question. So, in the case of marketing, for example, which channel should I invest in? Should I invest in a new channel? Should I invest in a specific strategy? So, this is a fundamental business question that we start with. And then we set up a hypothesis. So let's say when it comes to understanding channels, should I invest in channel X? If yes, how much sales outcome is that going to drive in terms of actual business metrics? Or how much brand outcomes is it going to drive in terms of my brand metrics? Then we go on to set up an experiment. And this is when things get really exciting because we are setting up an experiment with the robustness of a full scientific methodology. And I'll talk about that in much more detail in the next few slides about what good experimentation setup is. After that, we go on to analyze these investments, right? It could be a campaign, it could be a channel, it could be even a specific ad creative, right? We derive a conclusion based on the data in that analysis, and of course, not on our gut. And then the most important thing is we make a decision. Either we choose to adopt a strategy, we choose to test more, or we choose to pivot our testing to another strategy that could work better for my business. And over again, we want to be in this experimentation cycle, making sure that we are agile enough to test frequently and to pivot fast. And this is where all the juicy stuff comes. My favorite word, experimentation. What is control marketing experimentation? And when is this important? And why is the word controlled so critical? So, in one of the contexts, of course, control marketing experiments are useful when we want to determine, let's say, the performance of a single specific marketing channel or activity or strategy, right? So this is really, really important because if we don't have a control group, if we don't have proper scientific studies and methodologies that have been involved in making a decision, we don't want to be making decision based on bad data, right? You would rather make no decision or the wrong decision, versus just making the so-called right decision based on wrong data. So of course, there's so many metrics that we can look at, and there's so many vanity metrics as well, right? Like click-through rate, reach, and sometimes we get so obsessed with understanding so many different metrics, having so many different micro analyses that we can't really zoom out of the bigger picture and answer the questions that truly matter to the business in terms of marketing dollars invested. And this is where we start to talk about one of the most developing scientific methodologies in marketing today and for the future, which is called incrementality. And incrementality is truly the North Star for one simple reason: it measures causal impact. It no longer forces you to focus on correlation as a lot of marketing has done in the past. A lot of measurement, for example, let's say even things like click through rate or reach or number of purchases as well, is just a correlation between investment and outcome. But for us to understand true causation, does investing X amount of dollars cause Y? We need to focus on understanding the true incrementality. And so, what is marketing incrementality, right? And I think this is where, we really need to take a moment to absorb the information on this slide. Marketing incrementality actually helps you understand the differences in behavior when people are exposed versus not exposed to advertising. And this is where things get very, very important, because how do we actually understand the difference between A and B, right? So creative A, creative B, those are things that now we're all very familiar with. But how do we actually understand the impact of investments? And the only way that we can truly, truly do that is by helping understand what is the outcome that you're getting based on your marketing investments versus a control group. And having that control group, of course, like similar to, obviously it started with farming and then evolved to like proper pharmaceutical scientific experiments where you have that placebo, right? The placebo drug given to a control group. And it's exactly the same thing, except in this case, the control group are people who are not exposed to advertising. And they are the ones who form the baseline. And once you have an understanding of this baseline, that is when we start understanding incremental lift. And I found, a really simple way to explain this in a very simple chart, right? So you have two groups, as you can see. There's a control group and then there's an exposed group. The control group sees no ads, of course. And the exposed groups, you get impression data, which is they start to see ads. And the true outcome here really is to understand incremental lift, which is how much more additional value has your marketing investments caused for you to actually see that outcome, right? So, and understanding this outcome, this lift, this difference is what is critical. Because let's say a lot of people could, just be buying Coke or McDonald's or whatever, and maybe adding more marketing dollars might not be the way because the baselines are already so high. But let's say with a new brand, a new product, that's when your baselines are much lower. Either way, we want to understand what is the additional value that your investments are driving over and above what people would have done anyway, right? I mean, if people were going to buy a product anyway and you're spending more money, either they might purchase faster, which is great, or they would have purchased it anyway. So that begs the question as to, was your marketing truly effective? Or was it just pure coincidence that you happen to spend money and they happen to make a purchase? And that truly is the essence of understanding incrementality and incremental lift. And now that we've spoken about incrementality, I'm going to talk about what makes experimental design and what are some of the best practices when it comes to having a robust experimental design framework. So there are three things that I would like to highlight when it comes to thinking about what is good experimental design: randomization, comparability, and statistical soundness. So let me take you through each one of these and give you a perspective about why we need statistics and data and science at the core of decision making when it comes to marketing, and why, as an industry, we need to make the shift sooner than later to not just have more data, not just have more metrics, but to truly understand impact in a very causal form, right? So the three things that we're going to talk about is one, randomization. We need to make sure that, you know, let's say your audience in both your control and exposed group is randomized, right? We can't have any biases when it comes to the exposed group acting slightly differently from the control group, right? We need complete randomization between these two groups to truly understand impact. The second thing is compatibility, right? So, are these two groups comparable, or is there something that makes them different from the other, right? So, and there is a fine line between randomization within a group, randomization across two groups, and making sure that, when it comes to comparability, you are comparing apples to apples, not apples to peaches, right? So that's the second thing. And the third thing is establishing before the experiment what is your measure of success, aligning on what your confidence level is, right? Of course, like we want to make sure that your confidence level for a particular outcome, for a particular hypothesis, for you to prove that this experiment has been a success or not, needs to be perhaps at a 90%, maybe at a 80%. But we need to make sure that we have this robustness built into the experiment before we actually, you know, compare and analyze results. So these are three important things that, from a statistical perspective, we should keep in mind when it comes to setting up a good experiment. And now I'm going to talk about how to actually build this culture of experimentation when it comes to an organization, right? So, of course, this is one experiment that we've talked about throughout this presentation. But how do we actually build this culture within the organization where, as a whole, not just one person or one team or one department, but as an organization, how we actually building this culture of scientific experimentation, right? We don't want one test to be a, you know, quarterly or, yearly thing. We want this to build into the agility, into the operating model, into the day to day of teams within a company to actually be able to move fast, to test fast, to learn fast, to pivot, and to grow. We are all in such a dynamic environment and world. And we can't succeed if we are going to be stuck to our old ways. But at the same time, we can't succeed if we are, throwing shots in the dark. We need to learn quickly, we need to adapt, we need to grow. And the only way of doing that is to build this testing and learning mindset within the organization, right? Everyone should be very, very familiar with testing and learning, what that means, what are some of the trade offs, and how to actually move fast, move fast, do things, and pivots, right? Because there's no right or wrong, there's no success or failure. It's either something that we want to do more of, something we want to do less of. And the other thing that I've seen works really well in organizations as well is incentivizing learning plans, right? So, of course, like we talk every once in a while about personal growth plans. But even when it comes to making a series of marketing decisions, let's call it a learning plan, right? For brand X, how do we grow? These are some of the, 2, 5, 15, 50 tests that I'm planning to run. And let's reward, companies and teams in terms of, hey, am I testing fast enough? Rather than, has this test succeeded or failed? And that leads me to the third point, which is about truly, truly encouraging failure, right? There's some teams and some companies where I know that it is case studies that have failed or experiments that have failed are actually sometimes celebrated even more than case studies or, I guess, activity that has succeeded. And there is an importance to celebrating that, right? Because it creates a space of comfort, it creates a space where you feel safe. And feeling safe to fail is so important when it really comes to building that culture of experimentation in the DNA of an organization. And I think these are going to be building blocks to build future marketers, to build future marketing teams, to build future marketing organizations, and to build the future of businesses, right? It is not a static system, it is an ever evolving, dynamic, living, breathing system. And the way that we can breathe more life into it is by trying something, moving back, trying something else, pivoting, trying something else. Hey, this works as well, tying two or three things together. So it has to be that learning plan, that learning journey, that evolution that actually takes us from step A to step 100A. And with that, I would like to talk about, what I think the future of a marketer is going to be. It is going to be all of us focusing on becoming this experimentalist, right? This experimentalist marketer. And that is definitely the path that I am choosing to take for my career. I want to be a data driven marketer who helps businesses make sound investments on a scientific and experimentalist approach. And I hope that this encourages all of you as well to hone your skills to become this data driven marketer and also to really put science at the core of marketing. Of course, creativity has always been central to marketing, but now creativity can't live alone, right? We need both sides of the brain to work together in a very, very, very integrated way, right? And this is what is going to make someone in marketing successful, is going to make businesses successful, and is definitely the path that I see as the future. And with that, I thank you for your time. Once again, signing off, my name is Astha Kalbag. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Do check out marketing, do check out mooketing.com, which is my marketing blog. And of course, please do write me an email or a question or an inquiry on asta@mooketing.com. Signing off and see you soon.